Okay, we are ready to get started. So we're going to open our Architecture Board of Review agenda for February 10th. If we could start with a roll call.
Thank you. Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Wellen.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
Board Member Cunningham.
Here.
And Board Member Watkins is absent.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with general business and open for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may approach the podium. Seeing no one, did we receive any emailed public comment?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any general public comment.
Excellent. Then we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes from January 27th.
So moved.
Okay.
Under discussion.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Under discussion, I have a few cleanup items.
Okay.
Page 3 of 7, item 1, under the motion number 3, explore at least 2 additional 32-inch deep planters. Insert the word deep. Also, we need to insert 32 inches in depth after and 1 additional planter on the north elevation. So it should read 1 additional 32-inch deep planter on the north elevation.
Okay. Does the seconder of the motion agree to those?
I have some more.
Oh,
I have an item on page 7 of
I have
7.
one moment.
Sorry.
We've got
I
a
have
few
some
more.
more. Under same item, motion number 4, we find the horizontal and vertical planking on the exterior balustrades instead of facades of the project. And I think we can delete the second sentence because it makes no sense to me. I think it was trying to cover the same thing, but
Which sentence?
and add traditional detailing to the horizontal and vertical sidings on the interior. I don't, if anybody else can drudge in their memory up what that has to do with. I made the motion on it. I don't remember any traditional detailing.
I don't recall, but I think the general tone was to try and move it to a more traditional detailing.
Okay.
Possibly. I
Well,
don't
we can keep it in for safety reasons.
I don't recall.
And then item 6, I think item 6 and 12 are repeats of the same thing. And I would suggest that we say provide a more elegant solution to the railing atop the concrete wall, including exposed metal flashing elements. Does that make sense to you? I think that's where we were focused.
Okay. So that would delete number 12.
And delete number 12. And then on page 6 of 7, item 2, under motion number 4, I think it should read, I think we should, I don't understand lawn, so I think it's study the faux chimney at the front north unit, perhaps engaging the adjacent parapet is, I think, what the thought was.
Yes, and he subsequently did that. So it may not matter.
Okay. And then a very minor, on page 7 of 7, under item 4, Macaw Avenue, under the motion number 1, the first, the applicant to study 1 or 2 approaches, either embellish and find more depth in the detailing of the second entry, not secondary entry, because that secondary confuses itself with this next secondary used later on in the sentence.
Okay. Do you have any issues with those?
Since I wasn't present for the meeting, I can't comment on whether or not those Richards making a serious mistake. So I'll just, I simply seconded the motion in order to, move it along.
Okay.
If you prefer that I withdraw my second and defer to another member who was here, happy to do that.
Mr. Whalen, you had some other
Yes,
comments?
on item number 3, motion number 6, move all columns inboard. I really have no recall of what that's in reference to. Was it the fence or a shed or
It was a column supporting the shed roof.
the shed
element,
roof.
Just to move in,
moving? Yes,
which he subsequently did, and we looked at that on the consent
right.
calendar.
It might help then to have the shed columns move inboard.
There was only shed columns on the project, so.
Very good. I'll withdraw that comment.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we had a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I abstain.
One abstention. Okay, and then we had consent minutes for the 3rd.
Mr. Chair, for the Architectural Board of Review consent agenda for February 3rd, item A, 100 Frederick Lopez Road, was given project design and final approval as submitted. Item B, 18 Anacapa Street, was continued 1 week with comments. Item C, 100 Adams Road, was given project design and final approval as submitted. Item D, 802 East Coda Street, was given project design and final approval as submitted. Item E, 733 West Mission Street, was continued indefinitely with comments. Item F, 810 Quinientos Street, was continued indefinitely with comments. Item G, 329 Alameda Padre Serra, was given project design approval with comments. Item H, 331 East Valerio Street, was given project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item I, 630 West Arriaga Street, was continued indefinitely with comments.
Okay. Question for staff. So on item G, hold on. Just a question before we move on to anything. On item G, just a process question. So this was given PDA with comments. Do we get to see the comments? Because they're just, we just give the CEQA. I guess we
one-
did say
there's
There was
provide a
one
range.
comment. I
Provide
can
a range of?
check my notes from the meeting,
You're
but I
right.
believe it was just the one comment.
Sorry about that. Didn't see that one. Okay. Okay.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Then we have a first and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And for today,
Mr. Chair, for the Architectural Board of Review consent agenda for February 10th, item A, 110 Anacapa Street, was continued 1 week with comments, and item B, 18 Anacapa Street, was given project design and final approval with condition.
Move that we accept.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention. All right, so on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, appeals, etc.
Mr. Chair, we do have the subcommittee members appointment sheet I presented to you at the beginning of this meeting that we can go over. We weren't able to do that last time.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me see. Where are my announcements? Here we are. Perfect. All right. Board Member Cunningham will be stepping down from item 1, 401 Shoreline Drive, item 3, 1964 Las Canoas Road, item 5, 29 South Milpas, and item 6, 29 South Milpas.
Okay.
I'll be stepping down item 5, Paul Poirier's project.
Would that be both 5 and 6?
They're both the same address.
Yes.
And just to remember to all members, at the beginning of the meeting, just state the reason for your conflict.
I'm involved with Mr. Poirier on another project.
Wonderful.
The two City of Santa Barbara projects, we have contracts with the city. The last two projects, it's one of our projects.
All right. Thank you. So that means for item 5 and 6, we have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yep,
5.
got 4.
And these are, one is PDA and final. So I suppose we have 3 members that have seen the project, 2 that may not have. Is that correct?
Yes, we did send an email earlier today just reminding new members that they should review the tapes, and if they were able to do that, we can move forward with project design approval for that one item.
You were able to? Great. Fantastic. So we'll have 4 voting members. I did not read. Okay. Well, we've got our 4. So that's great. Okay. Anything else before we move on to the subcommittee? There is an appeal, apparently.
There is an appeal for 601 Alameda Padre Serra, which was filed within the 10-day appeal period. I believe it was approved either earlier this year or late last year. It will be heard on March 10th in front of City Council. And so if we have the members that voted in favor of that approval were Yvonne Insua, Board Member Cunningham, Board Member 6, and Board Member Moore, or Chair Moore. And Vice Chair 6. So if one of you 3 could commit to coming and speaking for the majority opinion, that would be appreciated greatly by staff. We do
Okay.
not need to settle that today.
All right. We'll have to duke it out.
Do you have any
Arm wrestle
notion
for that.
as to when it'll be scheduled?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Cunningham, I do not have any notion of when exactly it will be scheduled. They are, my understanding is it's not time certain, but typically appeals are the last thing on the agenda.
March 10th.
Yes.
I have to check my
I
calendar.
I meant the date. Did you?
10th.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Of March?
Correct. It,
Okay,
it does.
thank you. I'm sorry I missed that.
Be here soon. Okay. Perhaps just a little reminder from staff that we need to make that, we need to volunteer within the next week.
Send an email. Would you like? Okay, yeah, we can follow up with an email. Absolutely.
Okay. So moving on to subcommittee members. So the consent calendar, we spoke about trying to do a 2-month rotation. So we need to figure out an order. So if there's months that you know you will not be present, it'd be great to let us know, and we can try and work around that. But I'd propose that we just simply go down the line and each take 2 months. So I've done the few that were in January and one so far in February. So I'm happy to finish out February, obviously, and then somebody can step in following that. So, David, how is your March
nuts right now.
Nuts?
I did it before you said I
Oh.
prefer not to jump back in. if
Okay.
that's okay.
Fair enough.
I can do it.
Okay, so Richard for
March and April?
March and April. Then summer, spring, summer looking.
I'm going to be gone the whole month of May and the first week of June.
Okay.
I could have taken March
Oh, okay,
if Richard did not take March.
okay. Well, it's in 2 blocks, so,
But does it have to be one
no,
after another?
no.
No, it's just easier because projects tend to come back for another review, so it's nice to have somebody there that's familiar.
For March, April, what I'm up for a second.
Okay, so we had Mr. Olson for March and April. And you were, sorry,
I could do May and June, I think, yeah. I'll get back with you if I can't.
okay, so Richard for May and June. And then following that, do you want to jump back in after June?
Back in July and August?
You'll be in town? Okay. Then that leaves Mr. Whelan.
I'll be here.
Okay, so that's September, October. And then we've got following 2 months, kind of leaving the landscape folks out of it, just to be involved probably every meeting. So I can rotate back in for the final 2 months.
If you want to share that with me, I will.
Okay. Do you want December?
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think I'll be here except for the holidays.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So myself for November, Richard for December. Okay, and then David
Yeah,
and Bob, you can
Yeah,
discuss your schedules and make sure
okay, we'll do that.
it's not required every
yeah,
meeting,
it's
but-
just, if I have a conflict, then David needs to step in and, vice versa.
Well,
So we'll try to work with that.
Okay, great. Great, okay, so we got through that. Excellent, thank you, guys. Now, subcommittees. Highway 101 Olive Mill Roundabout. Isn't that wrapped up at this point?
Mr. Chair, that project is ongoing. It is currently going through the Planning Commission process, so it would be premature to disband that committee at this point, or subcommittee.
Yeah.
We have currently standing members on that committee? Okay, I can't, it's a conflict.
All right. I don't know how familiar you are with that, David, but
It's a lot of landscape.
needs landscape.
yeah, who's the design engineer on that job, do you know?
Laura Yanez,
What's the firm?
that's the city.
City,
Oh,
city
Yeah.
project.
Project engineer is Laura Yanez.
And
Yeah.
they've met pretty regularly last year, but I think
Sure.
their meetings have petered off, and there may not be much happening at this point.
okay, well,
Okay.
I just asked because I was involved in some other roundabouts with engineers that I thought were involved with that project, but, so there's not an outside design engineer then, it's all in-house?
There is an outside design engineer.
Who's that?
And I don't know, because even though our firm's working on it, I've not been involved in the project.
Okay. Well, can we say, let's say David
Yeah,
for now?
Wasn't Ivan on it
Mhm.
also?
Well, we need an appointment and then an alternate.
it's not T.Y. Lin, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah. Because I've
Okay.
done work with them recently, so.
Richard as an alternate. Okay, now Visual Arts and Public Places Advisory Committee. Don't know how often they actually meet. Any idea?
Mr. Chair, board members, when staff was looking at the subcommittees, we were going to take a look at what was still active and what isn't, and unfortunately we weren't able to get answers just yet, but we will, I think for the time being, we should fill the committees that are listed, and
I could take that one.
yeah.
Okay.
You just need one or two?
Two. Well, an alternate.
I could be the alternate.
Okay.
Sounds like a fun committee.
Okay, Design Awards, we still have that committee. That's Six and Watson. Watkins, sorry.
What does that subcommittee do?
It's an effort to dust off the design boards. They used to give out awards every few years to projects that they felt were exemplary, and it's sort of it lapsed for some time now. HLC is trying to get that up and going again. So there's been some activity that we can actually report on if we wanted after this. Residential multi-unit objective design standards subcommittee. So I was on that. I'm on that still.
You are on that, yes.
And we had
Board Member Witosh.
Chair Moore, since that committee is actually, well, it's not a committee, it's a working group. Since we're coming to the end of the life of the working group and it's going to be coming before the full board, it's the group's preference that we just remain with Chair Moore at this point and not add any new members to the group.
Okay. Sounds good. And then ad hoc subcommittees. Highway 101 roundabout. I don't know anything about what that is.
I think we can postpone
Those.
we can postpone that because I believe it is redundant for subcommittees.
Are any of these active? We don't know, I guess.
Sign ordinance review should remain active. There is an effort currently in the city attorney's office to take a look at that.
It's been moribund for over a year now, but I'm happy to remain on that.
We are
Committee.
picking it back up, so
Good.
there'll be some activity there.
Okay, so we have Cunningham.
But we had two.
Who was your?
I think it was Howard.
Okay. So we need an alternate.
The sign committee?
It's a ad hoc sign ordinance review committee because sign ordinance needs to be, Tava can probably explain better than I, but it needs to be revised in light of fairly recent Supreme Court rulings regarding freedom of speech.
Okay. Anyone interested in that?
I could be the alternate.
Okay. Great. Then architectural details. Remind me what that one was.
Could you remind me what that one was?
Chair Moore,
Yes.
am I even on? From what I remember, I think that was a committee to establish details to kind of get that back into our language when we are communicating with applicants to not as set standards, but just rough guidelines as references to kind of point them in the direction of what's amendable. So it wasn't necessarily a specific thing, but I think we just got to a point where it was vague. So I think it was a way to kind of help us.
Still sounds pretty vague.
It is. It is very.
Has that subcommittee met? Board Member Cunningham, have you met?
That was Howard.
Yeah.
And how?
Chief.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to table that and we'll move on. And the Lower Mission Creek design.
That was no longer, yeah, that was no longer active.
So we can get rid of, that one is no longer active. Okay,
Is there a second page?
probably. No, this is
It's a blank one.
this is who was involved.
There
you go.
Have we addressed alternates to the sign committee? Because we do have
We do.
that function, and I'd be happy to continue doing that.
Oh, are we responsible for appointing sign committee?
No, but if the sign committee needs a
Oh,
person to make
alternates.
a quorum,
Got it.
they draw either from HLC or AVR, depending on the district.
That is true, and I'm not sure why it's not on here, but we should.
So you can sign me up for that
If
again.
you're interested. Okay,
All right.
we did it. All right. So, any subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair, the awards committee, I think, is still looking for money.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anything new. The designs have been established. The
Processes.
process is established. And we gave a couple of the members who are going to speak to possible financial sources the designs of the various awards, and in order for them to help get financing.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee action? Okay. All right, we're going to move on from general business to our first item, which is 401 Shoreline Drive.
Stepping out. Hi, Carl.
And this is a new item, concept review. This is a proposal for a new ADA compliant gangway in the Santa Barbara Harbor. The proposed 80-foot long gangway ramp will provide supplemental access to the accommodation dock south of the city pier. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing, and this project requires compliance with the compatibility analysis, Harbor Master Plan, and the Harbor Master Plan Design Guidelines. Welcome. Turn that on.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Triberg with the Waterfront Department. Just to orient everybody, this is what we call the Harbor Commercial Area, Harbor Way. Our administrative offices are right here. And this dock right here is what we call the accommodation dock. This is where all visiting vessels come in, check in with us, and are assigned a slip. It's a busy place. To further orient you, this is the city pier. This is Marina One over here. Thank you. This is what we call Fish Float South Commercial Fishing Dock. And just to put this in a little bit of context, Marina One is a very large marina with a gangway right here. We have large waves and storms that wash across right here, so we have actually emergency access onto what we call Fish Float South and the accommodation dock, so people in a storm can get on and off Marina One. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires access to marina facilities, and the state incorporates into their design guidelines the Division of Boating and Waterways guidelines, essentially standards for taking access to marinas. And it's somewhat simplified. A gangway has to be 80 feet long. If it's 80 feet long in the state of California, it meets ADA. There's other types of gangways, which we call switchback gangways. They're not as common. We have one at Marina 3. They take up more space. They're kind of hard to shoehorn in. So once again, this is the accommodation dock where all the visiting vessels check in, Harbor Patrol boats. So the proposal is to complement this is the existing gangway. It's probably 35, 40 feet long. It's too short and too steep. We're proposing to put in an 80-foot gangway right in this location. Would be the way it kind of fits to maintain the 80 feet and land on its own float and keep all this. The access point is just to the south of the Boy on a Seahorse. If anybody goes down there, it's our sister city, Puerto Vallarta, I think, donated that to us some long time ago. It'll just kind of help orient where we're at.
Almost. Almost. There it is.
Yeah, so looking at this picture, oh boy, this is hard to do. The gangway would start right here on the other side of this and land right there. And that's 80 feet long. It fits. We looked at several different alternatives, looking from both different locations and getting rid of the original gangway. And this is our preferred alternative for a lot of different reasons. You really couldn't come in from, I'm going to scoot this out of here so you guys can see this, scoot this down. We looked at, there we go, looked at an alternative coming from this side over, and it doesn't fit. You can't physically make it fit because this is the travel lift pier for loading and offloading boats. You'd have to rebuild this whole pier. So that didn't work out. And then we tried landing it over this way, which would have been on the other side of the Boy on a Seahorse, but it would have eliminated this gangway and some other amenities right here used for harbor patrol. So this was our preferred alternative. This is plan view. Pretty straightforward. There's an existing concrete sidewalk. We built out a slab and then usually sometimes call it a piano hinge. The gangway sits on this hinge and goes up and down with the tide. We would build out this dock that would attach to the existing dock, and so it lands on its own, we'll call a landing dock. So all the activity that occurs here, including the landing for the other gangway, harbor patrol shed, and the boats would all remain kind of business as usual. It's not uncommon to have two gangways at the head of a marina, a shorter, kind of more practical gangway, and then an ADA compliant gangway. The state actually prefers that for emergencies. You don't see a lot in Santa Barbara. This would be, the sea landing is the only other place where we have it. These are typically made out of aluminum. Let's see, 5 feet wide. This is the boarding float. The wooden, we usually make these docks out of wood. It's fairly common. We make them all the time. And it's aluminum with the rails, I think 42 inches high, all ADA compliant. The parking lot itself, we have our paths of travel identified and ADA compliant parking stalls in behind our administrative buildings. So this is really a nod to being ADA compliant fully. And the reason why I mentioned the access to Marina One, if you don't mind, I'll go back here real quickly. We did not build an ADA compliant access gangway to Marina One because of the waves that break across here. Waves break all the way across here, so you wouldn't want to have a ADA compliant gangway in an area that would get closed during storms. So that's why we have an emergency float right here and want to go ahead and provide the ADA compliant access onto the accommodation dock, which would serve Marina One in an emergency or for disabled persons as well. If you've been down to the harbor and been down to Sea Landing, we built one of these a couple of years ago. We had a lot of cruise ships coming in, a lot of people going on a very short and steep gangway, especially at low tide in the winter. So it was a successful project. It went before the Architectural Board of Review. I should know the date, but it's probably 2016, 17, and this is subject to a permit from the Coastal Commission, it's in the original permit jurisdiction. So we're going through our preliminary review with the city and through ABR. And that's really all I have to say about it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We will open for public comment. Would anyone like to speak, address the board about this? We'll close public comment and move on to questions. David, do you have any questions? No questions. Richard? Oop, lost your mic.
It's a long one, and especially in this photograph here. I mean, it'll go all the way from here past that. Was there any consideration that the 80 feet could be involved in a couple switchbacks, no?
No, it couldn't because there's not enough space from here to here. So a switchback gangway usually has its own set of, its own dock of sorts where the switchback sits on and piles are driven into the ground. That's what you have at Marina 3. So you need more separation to get a switchback gangway in here.
You couldn't come and cantilever or start here and cantilever and come down here and then back and do this and have one of these at the side of the wall only, midway down, and then go back again. Was that considered?
We looked at it as the Marina 3 is kind of the model, as the kind of narrowest area where you can get those in. It's pretty significant the switchback itself has to sit on its own dock, and that dock.
No, this switchback would be cantilevered out from the. I'm assuming this is a concrete wall along in here.
This is a sidewalk, and this is riprap. It's not a concrete wall. It's like
this
the breakwater.
Isn't a concrete wall right here. This vertical stuff right there.
No, it's not. There's this much of its vertical wall.
There's a little piece of
It's
concrete wall
a
behind
cap.
this.
A sidewalk is kind of a cap on top of the breakwater itself.
So it's not. The riprap isn't here, and this is all concrete.
Over there might. No, I don't believe so. I believe it's on top of riprap. I couldn't tell you the exact amount of vertical concrete on top of the riprap.
So this section here is more accurate
Yes.
than the actual visual. Huh.
If you look in the photograph, you can see
I can see where it's just a cap beyond the sculpture, but
So the sidewalk
right here.
is pushed out.
What I'm saying is, can you slip down here? I think this condition is over here, beyond the existing ramp. Could you not come down along that concrete structure and then over?
We didn't analyze specifically what you're talking about. A conventional switchback gangway would not fit, and we did look at that. So
I understand it would not.
A switchback gangway goes out and lands on a float and still rises up and down with the tide. You still have to have you couldn't have a permanent fixed piece going down because the tide gets almost to the top of the wall as it stands.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't do this looking backwards from there, but
I'm saying that the switchback landing would be cantilevered from the bottom of that vertical concrete.
switchback landings are separated from it, the way it would work, because both elements of the switchback go up and down with the tide, not a single element.
You're still not understanding. The working part of the switchback, this as you have here, this is stationary and cantilevered out. And this is the one that moves up and down. I'm saying if you start here, and this was fixed, and this landing, this cantilevered fixed landing was here, and then you would go down this way, so this would go up and down. That doesn't work?
Where would it land?
It would land where it's landing. So this portion would be your gangplank that floats up and down with the tide. This one would be fixed to the cantilevered from the wall as this is, only this one is at the very top of the wall. This one would be mid-wall. And then there'd be another fixed ramp that would come up this way.
You couldn't be at mid-wall because you'd be underwater at a high tide.
Okay. Very good.
The whole thing has to float. Sorry.
Just
took
try.
me a moment to understand.
Any questions? No questions. Questions?
Yes, it occurs to me that looking at the photo montage, It occurs to me that looking at the photo montage, There may be a loss of some landing space, not slips, but
You're correct, right here.
in that
there's a
area.
This is what we call the dinghy dock. So boats with business activity permits or at anchor can bring in a dinghy. I think we'd lose 2 or 3.
2 or 3 spots, and would it impede some other dinghy movement through that area?
At extremely high tide, all the gangways impede dinghy movement as it stands. So people still go underneath it on paddleboards and kayaks and dinghies. But it's,
That's of no concern, Rio.
well, it's a
Oh,
little
it
bit of a
happens.
concern, and it would be a little bit of an impact.
So there are no new pilings? in the
No new
project?
pilings, that's correct.
And then one final question, at the dock area, can you explain the rationale for the handrails? Why they don't wrap all the way around the new landing, and they're just, it seems kind of arbitrary. Yes, so there's the L-shaped portion and the other small segment.
Yes.
What are you trying to accomplish with those railings?
Sorry. This dock is lower, will be lower than this dock. It's an older dock, it's settled, it's probably 4 to 6 inches lower. There'd be a noticeable difference. So the idea would just be people would get off, they'd walk onto here, and this is an actual ramp from the accommodation dock to the fish float. The accommodation dock is wood, the fish float is concrete. Docks that are made with different materials sometimes settle kind of differently. It's a commercial dock. It's a little bit, I would like to replace it in the not too distant future, but until then, that's the idea, is that people wouldn't come off and they'd have, 4 to 6 inch thing to kind of step off of.
That makes sense. And then on the other side, why isn't the railing continuous?
This is supposed to be a railing over here. I don't know why we'd have
Why doesn't it extend like so?
it shouldn't, there shouldn't be a rail there. There's normally no rails along docks. There's only a rail right here. It only really needs to be right there, just so people don't trip from this dock to that one.
I understand.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
picking up on that detail. We get comments frequently about having rails around docks, and docks, that would be many miles of rails in the harbor.
Yep. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I have an additional question.
Okay.
Your proposed railing, that goes where? That's what we're talking about, the proposed railing, and this detail on 4.4. Those are 2 1/4 inch up, typical railing section, 2 1/4 inch round?
This would be for the rails, for this rail.
Oh, for that rail.
Well, let me see here, hold on.
That looks like your typical.
It looks like it'd be that rail.
Oh, yes, okay. Maybe that's what it would be. It's me this time. Okay, let's assume that it is.
And why are those so massive? I mean, that's a lot of railing. 2.5 inches round?
I believe it's mimicking the railing that's up on the top of the seawall, but I would have to confirm with our engineering firm. This is a fairly minor component to the project, and frankly, I don't.
Okay, my question would be, could that railing, those are just at the sides of the cantilever, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And at the dock? And at the floating dock?
It would be on the floating dock, between the floating dock and the existing dock where it
Yes.
lands.
So both places, up above and down below.
Up above, there's a rail the entire way. Maybe,
Well, that's not what he's proposing. He's proposing a
Oh, I'm sorry.
proposed.
This is this rail. And why, now they're showing this with
No, I understand.
horizontal as opposed to vertical. This is our standard handrail. This is the rail at the top.
I would understand the need to have this
Yes.
proposed railing out here and out here and out here.
You're correct.
And my question is, why couldn't that be the standard aluminum railing used?
It absolutely could be. That's a very good catch. I'm sorry, I didn't look at that.
Continuous.
We're still a little
Okay.
bit in the conceptual phase
All
here,
right.
so.
Very good.
Yeah, these are the kind of comments we're looking for. I think you're right.
And then the color, the big truss that supports the 80-foot that's aluminum?
This is concrete.
No, I'm sorry.
Bridge.
The bridge itself, is this aluminum?
Yes, it is.
And it's round? round?
No, it's not round.
Oh,
it's-
okay. It's square.
Tube stock,
Okay,
typical.
thank you.
Sorry, I wish I had a photograph of the other gangway, the one at Sea Landing. That's pretty much what it would look like.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay. Let's go to comments. David, you want to start?
I think the project's fine. It satisfies a need that is, going to be an issue one way or another, and it provides amenities for some of our community that needs it, so I have no issues with it. I think it's good to go. The only thing I was looking at right now, if we can flip back to the plan view. This is a comment. The approach off the concrete cantilever that starts off the gangway right there, there's a maneuverability there's a maneuver issue that potentially when they make their angle to start going down the gangway, just maybe look at that to make sure that doesn't require like a wider landing to make that turn. That would be the only comment, is just vet that part if it doesn't need to be widened for any reason. But if that's been looked at already, it's fine as proposed to me.
Richard?
Yeah, I think I alluded to my comments, one being that the upper railing should be, that secures or guards the extended platform should be continuation of the existing aluminum railing with vertical pickets in the bronze color. I think if you're using the aluminum for the truss for the, that should be anodized bronze aluminum to match the railing. And I think that the railing down at the dock should probably match this railing design that's going down the gangplank. I think that's the most adjacent and would be more continuous design. So those are my comments.
Okay.
No comments?
Whalen?
I would only reiterate Member Six's comments about the railings matching at the top and appropriately at the bottom.
Okay.
No additional comments.
Okay. Yeah, I think, Richard, you summed up most of our interest in this.
Oh.
Want to make a motion?
Yeah, so this could come back on consent.
Can we send it to consent?
Mr. Chair, Board Vice Chair 6, this project was placed on consent simply because it does need to go to the California Coastal Commission to for their coastal development approval. So it's nice to have the video for reference for them. Other than that, there's no reason this cannot be reviewed on consent.
Okay, so I would give an indefinite continuance back to I would give this indefinite continuance back to the consent agenda. Thank you. With positive comments on the overall layout and logic and utility of the design, with the minor aesthetic concerns that the new proposed upper railings encompassing the cantilevered top landing match the existing bronze and picketed existing railings. The aluminum material of the truss of the gangway be match the anodized color of the existing railings, and the railings at the bottom floating lower landing should match the railings and guardrail of the existing gangway.
Okay. I will second that. Is there any discussion needed? All right. First and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 2, 2840 De La Vina. Come on up.
I got this.
All right, this is project design approval and final approval. This is a revised project description, and it's a proposal for commercial remodel of existing shopping center. Project consists of repainting the existing northern structure within an existing shopping center to match the new grocery outlet's color scheme. Project requires compliance with project compatibility analysis, urban design guidelines, Upper State Street design guidelines. It was last year, August of last year, and great. Make sure that's on. Push that button there. There you go. If you could introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Pettit, and I'm with Lauterbach and Associates Architects.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
And just to remind ourselves, it sounds like maybe some of this has changed.
It has.
Okay, but so our motion, so we're all on the same page, was continue indefinitely with comments, consider relocating the trash enclosure, consider introducing finger planters with as many trees as possible along the front of the project in order to provide buffer and landscaping, simplify the elevations on all 3 sides using the original material, split face block, restudy the colors to be compatible with the existing color of the split face block shingles and fascia, unify the elevations of the 2 buildings, remove the applied arches. The board appreciates the budget value of the marketplace but would like the applicant to study improving the landscaping. And then lastly, provide archived plans of the project. Okay.
So after our last meeting, we went
Mr.
back
Chair,
and...
I'm so sorry, Mr. Pettit. Mr. Chair, this project is returning with a significantly reduced scope of work. As such, it can be considered kind of like a new project, so the 2 members at the other end of the table that are new can participate without having reviewed the video.
Okay.
So last time I was here, we went back and thought we came up with a great scheme that followed everybody's comments as close as we could, and met with the owners who have owned the building since it was built. They're aged, and they've decided that all they really want to do now is just paint the building to match the grocery outlet. And so that's what this application is for, just to paint.
Much simplified.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to walk us through what that would look like?
These are black and white. There's some colors, and I do have some existing pictures of the center, and in particular the grocery outlet, and what happened when the grocery outlet came through. These were the colors that were approved. They're shown on the board. And what we're doing is basically continuing the paint scheme all the way through, as you can see on that elevation, and then also per this elevation. And those are the same colors that were approved previously.
Okay. So it's this paint, and this is where?
This is for the door. There's a red door that's currently correct.
Okay. That is C4, so that happens there.
Correct. these are the actual
Okay,
colors.
so this is this color.
Correct.
And then, are these, what are these?
That's to remain as is.
And that's a vertical wood.
Right, we don't have that over at the, it doesn't exist over at the grocery outlet.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, we will open for public comment. Seeing no, and we didn't receive any email comments.
Mr. Chair, we did not.
Great. So we'll close public comment and move on to questions. Why don't we start down there?
So, as I understand it, then the colors you're proposing now are matching what's there already at the grocery outlet?
That's correct, they're exact.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you. So some areas are not going to be painted, just for specifically the vertical wood siding?
At this point, the owners do not want to change the color. They want to keep that color. We're hoping that we can match that, maybe, if it's, and paint it to match existing, but we don't know what those colors are. But the direction was to keep those as is.
Thank you.
Okay. No questions.
Bob? No questions.
Richard?
It's my data question, I guess.
Go ahead.
So, you're claiming that this is the market. That was, is this it painted now?
Correct.
So this is the green, or the guacamole?
That's
This color here?
that's the bottom color.
This color is that color.
No, it's only at the bottom.
I don't see it. There's a wall or something there?
It's just hidden behind the car.
I'm sorry.
It's this color. right
Ah,
here.
okay. And so what is this color?
That is the tan color.
That tan color, and then this is that color.
Correct.
Okay. And then if we look at the photographs here, we have brick in the corner. And then we have this red vertical, or barnyard, or a barn.
It's a faded terracotta.
Okay. And then this wall here is what? Is this a new paint color? Proposed?
That's what it is now.
And that won't be painted?
It is this color scheme now. This is the grocery.
So this color is that new color?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any larger samples of the facade of the grocery outlet besides this?
I don't know if we submitted anything. We submitted a digital file of pictures, but this is what we've got here.
C4.
I think it was just the digital file.
And just to remind me, the wood that's on the facade of the grocery outlet is painted which color in your color scheme?
Everything that's part of the facade of the grocery outlet was painted when it came through a couple of years ago. And these are the colors that it was painted. And
Right.
we're matching those colors, and there's no wood over on that side.
If you go to your photo, you have exposed beams that are popping off the facade that are supporting the roof.
This is the tan color, I'm sorry. That's the darker tan color for here. But as far as the siding that's here,
Right, the
we don't
siding
have
stops on
that.
the other face, but
Right.
on the grocery outlet, those beams are painted the middle color. Sorry to reach over like that.
Correct. They're the darker accent color.
And then that I'm going to call it a trim piece for lack of a better word, runs down vertically, and there's plaster that's supporting those beam elements on the facade that stick out a little bit. Is that
There, it's basically what you see, the brick or the
can't see
block.
very well, that's what I'm
The
asking, sorry.
block down at the bottom, you can kind of get an idea.
okay? And then the body color is, I'm sorry, the vertical pieces are the
It's
green,
So the
thanks, Kevin.
horizontal base is the.
but the
other
vertical
color.
elements that where each one of those beams are popping off the
Those are
facade,
masonry with the exterior cement plaster, which is the lighter color.
the lighter in that cutaway photo down below, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that lighter color is not the central color. It's the color to the left of it?
The lighter color, the field color, is the lighter color, which is to the far left.
And then the trim color that's running vertically up the face
Is the darker tan, and that coincides with the masonry in those particular areas.
Okay. And do you happen to have it on your phone or anything, any photos of what that wood looks like actually right now, that color scheme?
I don't, I didn't take the pictures, but
It's a little hard
it's
to
right
gauge all
here,
this right
yeah.
now. Okay.
And we're open to painting those. I'm sure that if it's something that the board would like to see, I'm sure we can twist some arms and get that done. We'd prefer it.
Thanks. Those are my questions.
Okay, let's go to comments. David, do you have any? Well, the other David, sorry.
David, other-
Got to use last names.
Watkins.
Well, I'm a little torn because they're not my favorite colors, but if you're just matching what's been approved already, I'm not going to sit here and say there should be a different palette altogether, but so.
Okay,
No comments.
no comments.
No comments.
Well, I'll make a comment. I think it's sort of, they're two different beasts here, where one color scheme seems to make sense on the larger facade over here. The way this is so broken up, it sort of looks, the way this is rendered, it looks a little, what's the word? It's a little there's too much going on to my eye, but I'm interested to hear what the rest of you have to say.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think you could retain the colors, and they're not my favorites either, but you could retain the colors on the grocery store. But I think that the rest of it should, it's so busy and there's so different materials. The vertical wood between the arches is so not traditional or a good expression of arches. I think all of it should be painted one color, and do not continue the olive for the base. I think in this case it's a strong less is more.
Okay. Mr. Watkins?
I agree with the comments of Chair 6 and Vice Chair, I'm sorry, Vice Chair 6 and Chair Moore. The color scheme doesn't really lend itself to identify these lease spaces as their own separate spaces, and I think that could be a bit problematic. The facade's so long right now, and I don't see these color schemes kind of lending itself to break them up a little bit more. It just kind of, the rendering reads a little flat, but there's a number of reasons why it could read that way. Knowing that space really, or that area really well too, is I think the wood really needs to be looked at more, whether that's getting repainted or how that plays in, and does that become one of the color schemes that you're already presenting already, if this is what the color scheme you're presenting. I'll agree, I don't personally love the color scheme. It works for the grocery store. But when I see that rendering, it's also hard, to be honest, because there's not a large, I think we need bigger, I personally need bigger pictures than that. It's a very big facade. The other facade's very big too, and I think having larger color schemes than what's on that little board and these little pictures will help us visualize a little bit better. There's a lot going on there. And there's, like 9 colors. So I just think pulling it back a little bit more, if you want to keep those color schemes, maybe working within those palettes, but maybe breaking up the lease spaces or something. So maybe one particular lease space has 3 or 4, and the other one, you can still keep your trims and skirts the same potentially, and that's a common theme, but getting them to start reading a little bit differently, and then seeing how that wood ties in as well, because I think there's so many, there's the wood, there's the plaster, that's my timer, sorry. There's the wood, there's the arches, there's the wood siding of the roof that's still going to remain, there's the plaster, so there's a lot of different things going on there. And I think these make it look busier, not cleaner.
Great.
So if that's, I would just maybe take that and see how you could retain that, but accentuate what's there. The comment about the arches is a good one. Not saying you have to take out the windows so they don't look that way anymore, but there's tricks that I think you can do to get those to read. So I would maybe pull in that direction, and I think more effective imagery would probably help with displaying those colors the next round.
Chair, I've got a question if I can.
Sure, real quick.
The comment coming up was just to simplify it and make it less. That's of interest, I think, to me, to bring it all together and to have it, look like the rest of the building. So to have a top and maybe a base and kind of simplify it that way, just like the others. The others are pretty straightforward. So I don't know if there's any additional thoughts that you could share on that, because I think that is simplifying.
Well, possibly. Mike, sorry, David, were you done with your comment?
Just one little thing, and this might help with the elevation that's printed on the rendering right now. That is that west or probably west elevation? Are we calling that? Yeah. Whatever that. The Chinese restaurant has elevation. I'll call
Does it say right there? On
south. Sorry, so south elevation. That thing cooks. It cooks a lot of sun, so these colors are going to wash out really fast. And I think with that kind of pinkish color that's wrapping around the red doors that are there right now, that's going to fade really quickly too. So when I look at that and I see the red and the wood and the pink, those guys are really going to start pulling apart quicker than I think most elevations because of that. That's another thing to consider, I think, is all those colors are going to fade out pretty quickly. The green's going to wash out, and then we're going to be left with something even more muted than what we're seeing right now. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're not in a position where we can give you feedback on that specifically. But I think what's in front of us, you're hearing that there's a lot going on, simplify it, and I think a lot of it has to do with the contrast in the color. The former arches and those sections really pop out when they probably shouldn't. And maybe there's a way to make those recede. So,
I think I've got it.
I don't mind the red door.
Okay.
So, okay, I will make a motion. We have 2 options. We can give you a 2-week continuance back to the full board, but you would need to provide drawings by the Thursday before?
We would need electronic copies no later than the Wednesday before the meeting.
Is that possible? Okay, so a 2-week continuance back to the full board. The board appreciates the color board and the detail that's been provided. The board requests the applicant provide a color scheme that is simplified, potentially not the same as the south, the east,
Grocery store.
the grocery outlet elevation. I don't know if there's anything else to add.
I second the motion.
Under discussion?
Okay.
I think that whatever colors are provided should try to minimize the awkward arch spring points. I think that's good enough. And hidden and awkward doors.
Okay, I'll accept that. Accept that as well. Okay, any other discussion? No? Okay, we have first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you.
Thank you. Exiting the meeting again.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Do you want to hold on to that?
That'd be great.
Oh, you do? Okay, we're on to item number 3, which is 1964 Las Canoas Road. And this is a proposal for, this is a continued item, back for concept review. Proposal for new water pump enclosure. Project entails replacing existing domestic water and fire sprinkler water supply lines. Replacement of existing domestic water pump within an existing pump house. And construction of a new water pump enclosure.
Thank you.
Also proposed is landscaping, irrigation, and grading. Last here in October of last year. Welcome back. You can introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Heidi Jones with Suzanne Illich, Planning and Permitting.
Robert Schmidt with Flowers and Associates.
So I just
Mr. Chair, oh,
Sorry, we have one. We have an announcement.
sorry, I apologize.
You're going to say
so-
the same thing I am.
Probably. So, Mr. Chair, this project is before you again today. It has been identified that it requires a modification from the staff hearing officer for an accessory building within the front yard of a non-residential structure in a residential zone. So this is a new publicly noticed hearing. Both members on the other side of the table could participate in this. It is essentially the same design though, but it is a new hearing that will go to staff hearing officer. So today you'll be focusing on is the need for the modification, is the impact for that modification might pose to the neighborhood mitigated by the design. So that's sort of the lens that you'll be looking at. Great project today.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say is we came to you in October and got comments to move forward to project design and then understood that we needed to request a mod, move forward to the staff hearing officer. So we're here for those comments to hopefully get positive comments toward the mod, that it's aesthetically supportable. The existing fire pump house that's on site went through a similar process in 2009 and was approved for that modification, and we have those photos that you can see that in. And as you can tell from the site layout, the front yard is especially large on this site. So we feel this is a critical, fire infrastructure that needs to happen for the site, and we'll focus on that today and then come back to you with design-related comments post staff hearing officer. So we're here if you have questions.
Okay, so I'll read the motion. Continue indefinitely with comments. The board appreciates the project, particularly the grading and proposed mounding to screen the water pump element. Number 2, the landscaping is appropriate. The addition of landscaping near the driveway and entrance is appreciated. Number 3, the board believes the project is ready for project design approval. Number 4, the board finds the proposed color acceptable, would prefer a darker color. Now, it sounds like we need to go through it all again.
Well, my understanding is that you're only reviewing the request for the location for the modification in the front yard. We're not looking, we cannot come back for project design approval to address those comments until after we get this mod approved.
Okay. All right, so it's less about what this looks like and the location. So if we could just focus on that, that'd be great.
Give them a brief reminder.
It's probably best to look at the second page. Let's see, where did we put this? Just to quickly just describe what was going on just for everybody here. Los Canoas Road comes up this, and this is your main entrance into the property over here. And then it actually goes up probably another 1,000 feet up the road itself. We're proposing to put the fire pump house over here, which is just a gravel road. Currently, it's used only for fire protection and for clearing. And it's tucked back far enough that you really can't see it from this entrance itself. So that's the real big picture to it. Just to walk you through the pictures really quickly here. This is at the entrance looking at the street. So there's currently an existing wall here. This is Los Canoas behind it. This is up the existing driveway, but you'll see, try to do it backwards, right in here, this is the gravel road where the fire road is. So tucked up into here. Again, we're just, let's see here, it's hard to tell where we are here. This is actually, look at the plan, I can show you. We're actually right about here, looking kind of back. Sorry, if you can see. Go down a little bit farther on your, so we can show it. This is the existing pump house that is right here. Again, another shot from the entrance itself looking up. This is the actual gravel area, that the roadway, that's where we're going to put the new, it's about pretty far back into that, kind of there's a little clearing back there itself. This is at the clearing looking back at the road. So we're standing probably right in front of the pump house itself, looking back at the road itself. So you can see barely through the clearing where the roadway is itself. This is, so this location right here is pretty close to where the pump house is, looking this direction. Sorry, I'm getting myself turned each way. And this is just pictures around that area of where that flat area is. There's a pretty good little location that the pump house would go into.
Yeah, we'll also have some nice landscape screening and do the topography and kind of berming that will happen. It will not be really visible from any public views, maybe from the road when passing briefly.
And let's see here if I can get you. This one's actually pretty good. This one's across the valley. You can see.
So in this direction or that?
So this is across over here.
Over there.
Looking across just to show you what it would look like. Los Canoas Road goes around, goes by Schofield Park, drives up and over the ridge. We wanted to get a view from the far side. And right there is kind of the clearing itself. So it's pretty well secluded over there. And then this is from the far, looking up at the top, I believe.
In which direction?
I'm not sure what this one is. I don't know what that is.
Images.
Oh, this is the nearest property.
Oh, that's zoomed into that house that's way across the canyon that we had.
Yeah, so that one is this way, the next canyon ridge itself.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we will open for public comment. Would anyone like to speak to this project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Move on to questions. Mr. Watkins.
Can you remind me the height of that structure, the pump house?
It's 10 feet.
And then last time you guys presented, there there was a photo as you're driving from the roadway below. You can kind of see it, maybe just like a clip. I don't know if there's a rendering. Maybe you guys had at one point. Is it in the
It's
set?
in the back of
Okay.
this. It's probably one of the last couple pages.
Sorry.
So if you go to A101, it gives you the height. It's actually 11 feet, I apologize.
Okay.
And it gives you a little picture of what it's proposed to look like.
And then there was one, I think it was like a simulation as you're driving by it.
So if you go to,
Yeah, there you go.
That's the last sheet, LSK1.
Can you walk through the ones on the left real quick?
these guys right here,
Far left.
these guys.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's flat.
This is mainly from, let's see here. I'm gonna let Martha jump in on this one.
And Martha DeGasis from Arcadia Studio. So we just have the photographs from Google Earth of the existing conditions, and then the photo sims of how the how visible or not visible the pump house will be. And I think you can catch tiny little glimpses of it through the rather robust screening that we're proposing of all native plants. So I'm actually going to have to just squint right in there to see if I can see it.
And the trees in the foreground, are any of those new trees that are being planted, or are they all just existing to remain?
We're planting some coast live oaks, and especially on that berm, we're adding some. And then clearly these are sort of, the faint ones are ones that are existing
Okay.
per this, and then the more brightly colored ones are the proposed.
That's it, my only question. Okay, thanks.
Richard?
No question. Yes, regarding the berm, it appears that it is to obscure views from Las Canoas. What is the relationship, more or less, to the residents that's shown the fence to the back? What are the screening methods? Or why doesn't the berm extend to prevent that view from the residents? Is there one?
It's pretty far away. That picture was it zoomed up just to show what that one was up on the ridge itself. There is nobody right next door to this itself.
So you can't see the residents from the proposed site?
If you want to grab the photo again, I think that would be helpful to show how far away it really is.
And maybe just show us in relation to this,
I think that helps.
where that house is.
I believe it's right there on the next ridge over.
So the fencing is quite some ways from the residents?
Correct.
Thank you, that's all.
Okay. Any
No questions.
Okay. Comments?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fine. I appreciate you guys walking through the new plannings that you guys are doing. I think that definitely helps, and the simulations also demonstrate that you can barely see anything from the roadway. It's a pretty necessary infrastructure. From the last discussion too, the colors you guys are proposing and stuff are going to help it blend into the landscape even more. So I think even I would argue design is kind of weighs into what the modification's asking for. You guys are still doing things with the berms and the features and the colors that are actually helping that be less of an issue. So I think it's fine as proposed.
Yeah, my understanding is that we're here to address the modifications to the hearing officer, and the fact that the front yard of this property is, my calculations, 500 to 600 feet away, and the structure in the front yard of that is almost 140 feet away from the property line. I think this is totally out of context with what's normally concern of front yard structures. So I would give it. So I would give this because of those, the nature of the distances and the nature of the site and so forth, I would say that the modification is indeed something that can be approved.
Okay. Does anyone have any differing comments? No? Okay. Well, I will move to continue the project to the staff hearing officer with positive support for the structure located in the front yard setback, because of the applicant's efforts to fully screen the structure using the berm and additional landscaping, and that it's not visible to the naked eye from the surrounding community. Someone second that?
I'll second
Mr. Olson beat you.
That's good.
Okay. First and second, any discussion?
Can I add one thing, Chair, in the discussion, just
Sure.
to support the motion? I would also emphasize that, given the nature of the infrastructure you guys are proposing, I think it's even more applicable and supportable to have that in the front yard setback, given this area is high fire.
Okay, we can add that. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. All right, let's add our first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? No? Motion carries. Thank you.
Hi there. Likewise.
On now to item number 4. Is 3311 McCaw Avenue. This is a continued item, concept review, proposal for a facade remodel for the Gelsons in Loretto Plaza. Project entails creating a new western entrance with detailing to match the existing eastern entrance. The maximum height of the new entrance will increase from 20-foot 2 to 26-foot 8. Project also includes new outdoor seating. No increase in floor area is proposed. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires compliance with compatibility analysis, Upper State Street design guidelines, outdoor lighting design guidelines, and was last year, January 27th. Welcome back. You could introduce yourselves.
I just brought one set.
I dropped off. Yeah, last week.
Okay. If you could introduce yourselves.
Steve Fort with Suzanne Elledge Planning and Permitting.
I'm Jacinta Tan. I'm project architect with Schick Kelly.
Okay.
Okay. And I see we have 2 new board members here. Should I do a little bit of a recap on?
Let's.
I watched the entire video.
Okay, so you're caught up.
Yes, sort of.
Mr. Watkins. Good. Okay. Our motion was fairly straightforward. Applicant to study one of 2 approaches, either embellish and find more depth and detailing of the second entry and gabled roof element, or remove the gabled roof entry and find ways to make the parapet secondary to the main entrance.
And we chose to go with the second approach, which was to simplify and create more of a hierarchy between the 2 spaces. So on this side, you have the existing Gelson's building. This is the expansion side right here. We decided to eliminate the gabled parapet going straight across. We eliminated some of the arches that were over all the storefronts. We chose to retain one of them over the entranceway to help designate that as the entrance. And we did, do a little bit of a raised parapet at the entrance. Again, once again, to signify that entrance.
Okay. Do you want to walk through the elevations?
Yes. Here are the
So it's 26'1",
Mm-hmm.
That was, last time it was,
I think it was a little higher at
yeah. So slightly lower.
Mhm.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. We will open for public comment. Anyone here like to address the board regarding this project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Go to questions.
No questions.
Yes. Is there a side elevation? And specifically, what I'm wondering about is the return on this new addition that you've added there.
There's a little bit of a return
Yes.
there, yeah.
And so,
And I think we chose to, or we would probably try to match the return on the Gelson side.
so would you estimate that distance?
I would say it's about 6 feet.
That doesn't look.
Okay.
And
That's not 6 feet.
this, the lighting and the sign, that's the intention?
Yes. I understand that'll be under a separate permit, but we wanted to include it as reference for.
And the lighting?
That would be part of that permit too. Yeah. But this is existing lighting that is being used on the Gelson side. That's existing. We would match that. So it's a painted sign that's externally lit.
I think I was more interested in the lighting than the sign, actually. No questions, no further questions.
Okay. Bob?
So, forgive me if, it sounded like you were asking about the depth of this return.
That's what,
I don't see 6 feet there.
No, I think I was estimating this side, which is what I think I would intend to match. What's existing on the Gelson side.
that's the way I understood your answer.
Okay. And is it your intention, I know it's a different permit, is it your intention to match the size of the existing Gelson sign with this sign?
Yes.
And do I understand that this entrance is somewhat subordinate to this entrance?
Yes, it's a secondary.
Okay. And there is no fenestration along this elevation below the,
Oh, there is. It's
awnings?
existing fenestration.
doesn't seem to show up in your,
I think it's just
Simulation
the
there.
way the rendering's rendered, but they are existing storefronts that we are retaining in size and form. There was an existing wood trellis over each storefront, which we're removing and replacing with awnings.
okay. No further questions, thank you.
The glass would be clear.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The, let's go here. By the rendering, this surface is not is more proud of that surface than this. This is set
Correct.
back a little bit. And if you pulled this back out to that, what is that dimension? And if this was pulled out the same, would that impose upon your maneuverability on the outside there?
We're not proposing to pull this out any
If you
further.
did.
If we did.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like this right here, I don't have a dimension for it, but this is, how far.
Is this how far these arches are in here?
Yes. Yeah,
So that
This
dimension
is
there
that
matches this
difference.
dimension here?
correct.
I think
Yeah,
this is extended because of the
Yeah,
of
there
that
is a-
detail. So
Oh.
that's what she's.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Watkins, any questions?
Yeah, the rendering, those windows that are on the far right of the image in the foreground, they look a lot wider than what's, I'm sorry, on the elevation, where the new addition's occurring. Thank you, Vice Chair. Those look a lot wider than what's shown on the elevations on the plan, so I'm wondering which glazing direction are you guys going in?
You mean?
Well, these look a lot more narrow and vertical, and those seem more horizontal and
Yeah, I
longer.
think it might just be the angle and the.
We should refer to the elevations for that kind of.
But we are not.
It still looks distorted. It doesn't. I don't think it's the view as much. It just seems funny.
They are existing storefronts, and we're not planning on making changes to.
So it's just
any
infill.
aspect. Yeah.
Okay. And then, can you remind me, as that last part of your new addition terminates and it feeds back into the existing shopping center, the other lease spaces?
Yes.
How much depth? What happens when that wraps back on itself?
Let's take a look at the photos of the existing space. So our scope of work ends right here, and you can see it's actually set back a little.
And so that archway that's happening at the end is not in your scope?
Yes, that's out of our scope.
Okay. So, and that pulls forward. Okay. And then, and you already answered the question earlier about the parapet, so I think that's. Last question would have been, do you guys anticipate needing any additional rooftop equipment on that part of the alterations?
Yes.
You do?
We are.
What kind of units are you guys thinking of?
It's a 15-ton unit. There's existing 2 10-ton units up there. I think we'll be removing them and replacing with a 15-ton unit.
Okay. And do you guys have any ideas on the locations on the roof lines?
It'll be towards the middle of the building.
Okay.
So it's quite a ways back.
Okay. And you guys gotten far enough in your design where I know you've said the tonnage, roughly what the profiles and the manufacturers, like would you be able to provide cut sheets in the next round?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Those are my questions.
Okay. And just looking at the photos versus the rendering, is there any change to the color of the building?
No, there isn't. Yeah.
Much more yellow in reality. Okay. Let's move on to comments. Any comments? David?
Well, I definitely think it's an improvement over what was presented the last time. I mean, I like the contrast between the two rather than trying to sort of mimic what was there in the original, on the far left side. So I definitely, I like it.
Okay.
I think the applicant has been very responsive to those comments, choosing one direction or the other. The only comment I might add is that the molding over the box over the secondary entry be a little beefier to, in a sense, hold up the sky and along with the return, which might even be deeper than 6 feet if you could, to really give that some sense.
So you're saying instead of trying to match what's there, is this
Yes.
looks very similar?
It looks like it's a match, and I think it should be of a higher importance.
Okay. Mr. Olson?
So where does this go from here? What is the next step?
So this is still concept. So we would be telling them whether we felt it was ready for PDA, and then staff would then jump into their compatibility, or not compatibility, their full analysis.
Okay. My comments are that I think it's important to match that setback, and if it's 8 feet, it's better than if your estimate of 6 feet, but I think it should match.
You're talking about
Yes.
The return.
the return back.
Yes, and I think at some point, we want to see where those air handling units are in an actual plan. That's all my comments.
Okay, Bob?
I agree that have the pointer, please. This element needs to be much deeper. I'm not sure if matching this is necessary. In fact, I'd like to see it deeper. I agree with the comment regarding the molding at the top of the taller element. I don't see much of a molding along here. Is there a molding?
Yes?
Yeah, we did
Okay.
scale it back.
I think it wouldn't hurt to, beef that up a little bit too. This is very plain. Other than that, I think it's certainly several steps in the right direction.
Richard?
Yeah, I think it's a very good direction. I think that eliminating the second, third, and fourth arches on the sides very successful. It was fighting to last time. I still think that I would like to see the thing come down to match the height of this here, to make it very subservient. I think that, you can kind of see it go, all up and down and so forth here. I think it would be more consistent and more linear, continuous design to have that down at the same level. Understand that it's not as proud as the other, but I think that it should come down, and that would also help the concerns of the return. I know, and second of all, I don't think, we don't have purview on the signage, but I think that in the same breath, the same spirit of subservient, I think that the sign should be off that center and much more minimized over somewhere in this plane or something here, just to help identify. I think you have enough identification, and the design is continuous enough to read that it's the same store. I don't think you need help with two signs, just a subservient sign. And also, I'm interested also in the view studies of the new equipment on the roof.
David?
I agree with Board Member Cunningham's comments. First, I'd say I think you guys have done a great job. I appreciate the design direction. It's one of those things where less is more. I think it's very clean, it's concise, it blends in very well. It actually looks like it was a part of the original development and upgrades, or the upgrades they did to the original development. The comment about the trim, I think on those flanking parapets, I think it would be more appropriate not to scale it back and actually match what's there. And the other comment that Board Member Whelan had, to beef up maybe the parapet over that secondary entry that you guys are proposing, would probably help distinguish that again. And I would disagree and say the hierarchy of pulling that wall line up is, I think, really redefines that as something other than what's, just another part of the facade. So I appreciate the height of it. I think adding a little bit more trim on that particular element would probably help it define it, and then you can have the opportunity of bringing back those other cornices that are flanking there. Everything else looks great, though. I think the idea about the studies, a roof plan showing how far back you're returning, and also the rooftop equipment location with a very schematic site section, just to, it's a really deep parking lot. And I think the other thing is the adjacent roadway, Las Positas, as it rolls up, you actually do see a lot of that rooftop when you're coming up and down that roadway. So finding a way that you can locate that doesn't scream that there's this big unit that's up there now, because you really do see all that as you're coming down, and as you're coming up to you're looking right, you can see the hopefully, I guess, you avoid that wild west facade where it's just a flat wall with no returns, and if you actually start to pull the return walls back, it'll have it read as an element more. So just look for that for the next round, but in terms of the facade itself, it's great.
Okay, yeah, I agree. It was a good step forward. I agree that this molding or cornice detail could be sized up a little bit. I think but in doing that, it would grow downwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would help to mitigate some of Richard's concerns about this being bigger than that, I guess. And I think the little detail that you have across the very subordinate plane, I think that's appropriate for this scale. So otherwise, I agree with the other comments. So does somebody want to take a crack at a motion?
I'd like to make another comment, if
Okay.
I might, in response to Richard's regarding the signage. Just bear in mind that the sign ordinance, sign guidelines are specific with regard to the locations of signs in terms of the entrance to the building. So locating the sign over on this facade probably wouldn't be the best idea. So yeah, a smaller sign here, I think would be just fine.
Okay. Wants to make a motion?
There were some differing opinions.
There was.
I'll try to craft one. That's
Okay.
okay. The board appreciates the revised facade design and finds it acceptable. Sorry, generally acceptable. With the following comments to consider. The main entry parapet wall. Main entry parapet wall. I'm trying to craft this for everybody. We'll start with this. The cornice at the main entry parapet wall is further developed to better stand out from its the flanking parapet walls, and also better mitigate the proportions of the step-in plane that's occurring along those roof lines. The same main entry parapet also have return parapet walls added to it so that the element seems like more of a form and less of a facade. And that these return parapet walls are taken back at least the depth of the second level facade. That the applicant provide a roof plan showing where these parapet wall elements run on the roof lines, and also show existing and proposed mechanical units, as well as cut sheets of proposed mechanical units. That the applicant also provide at least one site section from the parking lot, the main parking lot, I'll say right in front, confirming that the proposed and existing mechanical units will not become more visible with this proposed design. We also ask that the applicant provide photos from, or photo simulations from Las Positas showing that there will not be an adverse impact for the proposed mechanical units. I think a site section is going to be too difficult to do, so I think photos might be easier. Or you guys can decide that, but I'm trying to give you an out there. It is our understanding that the color scheme of the new facade improvements will match the existing, and the board finds that acceptable and appreciated. It is also the board's understanding that the proposed lighting will match the existing, and we find that acceptable as well when it's decided to be submitted. And the board also asked that the cornice elements along the, you had a good word for it, secondary or subservient? You had a good word for those.
Subservient, I guess.
Subservient.
Which these
parapets flanking the new entry also be studied to either tie in with the storefront design or adjacent cornices found throughout the development. it is also the board's understanding that the proposed awnings, sorry, are these awnings already there or are any of them new?
The ones on the east side are existing, the ones on the Gelson side are new. These are existing, and we're proposing to match.
Okay. It is our understanding that the applicant will match existing awning canvas and supports to the existing development and find that acceptable as well. And that would be it, unless anybody else has items to consider or add that I missed. That would be the motion.
Okay. Second.
There's no motion. It's just comments at this point. No, sorry. We have all those written down. We just is it an indefinite continuance? That would be preferable from staff. Okay.
So there's no motion required?
No, there is. Sorry, just there was no continuance or
Definite
anything mentioned at
continuance.
the beginning.
Okay. Thank you. So we had it first, and Bob's going to second that. Any discussion? Nope. Okay. Let's have our vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. We are slightly ahead of schedule, amazingly. So we do not. We will adjourn for at least 5 minutes. agenda. Moving on to item number 5, which is 29 South Milpas. Project design approval and final approval are requested. And this is a proposal for rooftop equipment and trash enclosure. Project consists of installation of a rooftop HVAC system, refrigeration units, as well as sound screening walls. Also proposed is a trash compactor adjacent to the northeast corner of the structure. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis, urban design guidelines, Haley Milpas design manual, and was postponed on the November 18th agenda. So it's been a while since we've seen this.
Took them a while to redo the mechanical system. So if you recall, I'm Paul Poirier, not the architect, but the representative, because we're doing the shell. They had a lot of the refrigeration equipment pushed towards the back property line. And so that needed a super tall sound barrier type rooftop equipment screen when it was back here. This is an existing rooftop equipment screen that's on the roof now. I convinced them to jam it all in one area and push it back here so that it's a smaller footprint. It's also farther back from the back property line so that they didn't need to have such a tall equipment screen. So they did that. And then where it's shown dashed like this is where they're proposing to put this sheet metal cornice thing on the top that kind of looks like the cornices we have running around the building on the other sides. And you'll be so far away from it because it's set pretty far back from the edges of the building that's back up on top. I don't think you'll be able to tell it's made out of metal. And they're proposing to use the flat panel standard rooftop equipment screen stuff like you see here, which does have horizontal lines, but you won't be able to see it from the distance you'll be seeing that thing from.
Okay. Why don't I just go through the motion, just so we recall. So it was continued with comments. We studied the proposed screening that is not sympathetic with the building and the heights are too high. Study reducing overall height of the sound screens. And maybe we could just address those as we go through them. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do. So restudy the proposed screening is not sympathetic with the building, the heights are too high. You spoke a little bit about moving the largest screens.
And that enabled them to lower them. So this last sheet shows the heights of the screens in relationship to the front elevation. So you can see that they're much lower. I don't know if you remember how tall they were before, but they're pretty low now, and they're set back. So.
Okay.
They did do sightline studies with these dash lines here, showing that you probably wouldn't see any of these from the property line sidewalk on this side of the street. It might peak up a little bit when you're on the other side.
A4.0? And then, are there heights indicated on these guys anywhere?
Let's see. Top of the screen to be 1 foot higher than top of condensing unit, but they don't have
6
a
foot
height.
above finished roofing.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
they're 6 feet tall. Looks
6 feet tall, and there are parapets around, and there's another barrier in front of it over here if you were looking this way.
And then these are how tall? I guess here's this detail. 6'4".
Not here.
Okay, so we don't have that detail. Okay. Now the sound screens, which are these no, not dash lines. The sound screen is this.
12 is the roof screen barrier for sound, so all of
Okay.
these are the barriers.
Right.
18.
And those have been reduced
Mm-hmm.
to 6 feet.
Yep.
Okay, so the next is study using screening on the Milpa side is screening on the back side of the back screen. So with reduction of height, additional screening may not be needed. And you're showing us that with your view angles on this elevation.
So that's the view from the other property line here, 6 feet at the sidewalk, looking up. You know, you aren't even going to see any of these, but maybe from the freeway, you might, things like that.
So on, this is if you're standing on the sidewalk in Milpas?
Right.
Okay, so that
You'd
dash
see
line,
this one.
You catch the corner of that.
Catch that one.
Okay, and that's probably that for this, whichever one's closest.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Okay. Carry the sound screens around the corners up to the west elevation.
So they didn't used to have it all the way around that box.
That.
Mm-hmm.
For the non-sound screens, either relocate the units or provide maximum distance from screens to parapet walls and use a material sympathetic to the buildings.
They had a corrugated before, so now they went with smooth, and they're willing to add the fancy cornice where it's indicated by this dashed and dotted line, which is keynote 18. So there and there, where you might see it, and there, but they don't think anybody will ever see it from here unless they were like way up on the Riviera looking down.
Okay. Relocate the western unit if possible.
There was one here, and it got relocated around over here somewhere, I think.
Okay. Are we talking about, was it this unit we were
West
talking
is
about?
that away. I think there was one on the edge here and one over here,
Okay.
and they jockeyed them around over there. And these were all way farther back around in here.
So this one
Moved farther from the edge.
was somewhere over
And we
here.
eliminated one that was over here.
Okay, the trash compactor is acceptable. Number 8, provide a key plan or reduced site plan to show the location of the units.
That's that thing.
Why don't we? Okay, it's helpful. That is that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. That one will be hidden. These parapets are all really high, towers and stuff.
Okay. Number 9, the tops of the proposed equipment screens shall match the quality and character of the building in order to resemble a more integrated design. So we talked about materials.
So that's why they're going with that.
So it's this as the vertical surface
Right.
with this piece
Right.
on top. Okay, that was it. Do you want to add anything?
Nope. Paint to match.
So when you say paint to match, that's
The body color, the white.
the white, off-white?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not, so everyone's clear, it's not going to be this gray color.
Right.
Good. Okay, if that's it, we'll open for public comment. Seeing nobody, we'll close public comment. Move on to questions. Any questions down here? Richard?
I think I get everything except for, if we look at A4 elevation, south elevation, the new roof screen for RTU number 1, this guy, this beast right here.
Mm-hmm.
Now we look back at the roof plan. And is it that one right there?
RTU number 1. No, it would be one that would be.
Is that one way back there?
That's number
I think this is I think they're looking at RTU 2, which is back here, maybe.
So, where's this guy?
So here's the tower, the entrance tower, and here's the entrance tower.
So
This one.
So it's this guy?
I think so. Yeah, there we go. So entrance tower's there, so it's that one. That was there.
So it's considerably back.
Mm-hmm.
And where's this beast?
It's right there, but it's below all of this stuff because on the
this-
elevation it's
this
pretty
guy
high.
right here?
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. And then this one here,
That one.
in looking this way, looking from the west, from the north. Okay, I get it. Okay, so its sight line is barely there.
This one, yeah, from that side.
No, this one. I'm still confused. This one here.
Mm-hmm.
Sightline study from west elevation is almost out of there. Right.
Yeah.
Right here. Is that it?
RTU 2.
2. Here's one.
That one.
There's one right here.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
And there's the big condenser one that has to be a little bit taller because they're trying to screen the noise.
But that one's way back.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
David, questions?
This one, what's the existing roof screen material?
I believe it's just corrugated metal on those kind of kicker pipe rail type things. I do not.
Okay.
I don't know if it shows up in any of the photos we submitted.
Doesn't really. There's some elements that could be screened.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So in this, Paul, in this one right here,
Yeah.
this line doesn't seem to be. This is a screen.
11
is a screen.
It's a screen.
With
yes,
parapet.
without sound.
With the cornice.
With a cornice, but it doesn't return.
Doesn't return.
Odd.
But
Excuse me.
17.
This one returns. This one returns. But this one doesn't return. And the reason you don't know.
It might be that this tower's blocking any view from this way. And there's another tower here and a building, Carl's Jr.'s over there, so it's kind of hard to get a view from that way, other than from the end of the building over here. And this is where the end of the building is.
Okay.
Okay. You guys, David, you want to go into comments?
I don't think I'd support the materials as proposed. I think that comment about maintaining the consistency of the materials of the facade should still stick. I think I'm worried that's going to be too visible, too disparate from the design of all this improvements that you guys are doing when you see it from the freeway. I think that's my. Yeah, as the materials as proposed, I can't support that. Doesn't read as very consistent with the plaster and everything else on site. And I think it will be noticeable. So I'm worried about that. And I also think just the existing screens, even the orientation of what the photos were, are vertical. And the new siding is horizontal, so I think even just even if it was trying to match back to the existing, it's not matching because everything existing is vertical.
Yeah, I think we had vertical last time. But you guys said you wanted something smooth on the new ones.
And I would support that comment about it should, I think, read more consistent with what is actually being proposed for the rest of the development. That's my only comment. I do appreciate the fact you guys took all the effort, though, to relocate these things and pull them together and eliminate a lot. But I think based on some of these sight lines and the heights, I think it's going to be noticeable in certain visuals.
Paint to match, certainly help.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, I very much appreciate the super effort that went into minimizing the impact of these. I don't know if I have a problem with the materials. I certainly hope that there's proper closure panels on and the corners on those on those cornices. And I'm wondering if you could pursue whether the material can be textured to further match the plaster look. But if not, I don't have the same problem as David Watkins has on the materials. I think you got to stop somewhere because full plaster and so forth gets heavy and lateral and da-da-da-da. So I think the materials proposed are okay and would like the applicant to pursue whether a texturized coating can be applied.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Richard. Same comments. So, any comments down here?
Yeah, no additional comments.
So they're here for project design approval. They would like final approval as well.
Chair Moore, just a reminder, you can have minor comments on final approval that go back to consent for approval.
Or you can make a condition, just tell us to paint it with texturized paint that's flat, and I'll tell them to do that.
Yeah, let's do that, and if they can't, they can come back and say we can't.
I mean, you don't want these things to be gloss, shiny white.
That's what we're worried about.
Anyway, you know?
That's the concern, is that even if painted white, they still are going to be shiny.
They're smooth.
Yeah. Or reflective, that is the concern as well. Okay, I mean, should we do a quick straw vote? How many people feel that we could give PDA and final approval with the condition that staff verifies the applicant has specified a textured paint on these screen walls? So we got a three, and then one no.
Yes, sir. Yes, one no.
So a no, and one abstention. So where does that put us? Is it a pass?
Motion, yeah, the straw vote passes.
Okay. Well, then I think I'll make that motion then. For project design approval and final approval of the proposed screen walls with the applicant to specify a color for the screen walls that matches the building body paint and that is textured in a way to minimize reflectivity and sheen. Oh yes, I have to do the project compatibility analysis. Okay. So this project is in compliance with the city charter and municipal code, as far as we are aware, and is consistent with the MILPUS design guidelines.
But you had it memorized.
No, not yet, unfortunately. It is compatible with the architectural character of the city and neighborhood, and it is compatible with the architectural qualities and characteristics, as the applicant is providing additional cornice details on visible roof equipment screening walls, and will be providing a paint coverage that matches the building and has texture. It is appropriate in size, mass, bulk, scale, and height, as it is roof equipment, and the screens have been minimized to the greatest extent possible. There are no known adjacent landmarks or historic resources, and the public views of the oceans and mountains have been maintained to the greatest extent possible by minimizing the height of the roof equipment and screening walls. And there's no change to the open space or landscaping proposed.
Second.
Okay.
Can I add something under discussion?
Yes.
There's notes on A3.0 that are talking about confirming which actually receive cornices or not, so I'm curious if the applicant can clarify that.
Keynote 18 is where the cornice goes. So it's this dashed dot line that's outside of it. So it'd be there, around that one.
He's talking about this note.
They're similar, yeah, but they refer to the cornice shall be installed only if approved by AHG.
Yeah, I should say it's required.
What's AHG?
I don't know. The AHG.
Okay. So let's just tack that on and say the cornice is required at all locations indicated on the plan.
Is that acceptable as a seconder?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? Okay. First and second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No, just one.
And one abstention, so motion carries. Thank you. Yes, so our next item isn't on until 6 p.m., so we will need to adjourn till 5:45. Yep. So we will be back. And move on to item number 6, which is 29 South Milpas. It's a new item for concept review, and it's a proposal for a new gabled entry, 3 cart corrals, and alterations to parking spaces within an existing shopping center. Project entails construction of a gabled entrance over southernmost tenant space, replacement of 4 parking spaces with cart corrals, and reorientation of 6 parking spaces at the front property line. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. The project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the Haley Milpas design guidelines and the urban design guidelines. Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, Paul Poirier and Randy Podel, the owner of the center. So we're here because we're under construction, as you know. We're going to be turning the space over to Sprouts to be doing the TI March 1st. So we're wrapping up the west side of the parking lot. And as we were working through what we really wanted to do here, planning staff informed us that anything in the public right-of-way needed a modification. So we're coming back now with a package to make all little things in the modification area that are within 10 feet of the front property line, because any alteration to the parking lot in the front, as far as configuration, has to be revised and get a modification for, and changes to Jack's Bagels storefront also needs to have a modification. So we're going to do that. Also, we're planning on having places to put the carts in the parking lot. So we're also submitting that to you. So this plan shows what we're trying to accomplish. The approved plan has the original angled parking over here. And in order to go to 90-degree parking and pick up 1 additional space, we need to get a modification. So that's what we're requesting here. Over here, requesting a little wrought iron piece go across the end there, which we've drawn up, to keep people from walking off a little 6-inch step that's there. And we're doing a new gable over at Jack's. And then the other request is to take out 4 parking spaces with these 3 cart enclosures to have cart returns in the parking lot. Rather get them approved now so that people can take a look at what we're planning on putting in, as opposed to have them just appear like happen to appear at most other shopping centers. It's showing the new railing over here. There's an existing railing that runs around Jack's Bagels little dining area, so we're just matching that railing. This is the area that we need a modification for in order to just put a gable end on the end of that existing building.
Yep.
So this is the 10-foot setback, and a few little portions of this are more than 42 inches higher than the existing envelope. So we've been told we need to get a modification for the hatched area of this gable. So that's our request. This is what the railing looks like. That's going to be going across the end of the space there. And this is what we started with probably like 2 years ago. We had this elevation. So you're seeing it once again.
There's the other end. Or, no, that's it.
Yeah, that railing is new, right there. This one's existing. Yeah, we had to reconfigure this because the existing sidewalk was too steep. So we flattened it out and had it jog back so it slopes down this way. So it left an awkward little 5 or 6 inch step, which is legal, but just to avoid liability, we're just going to slap a railing on it and redirect people to turn left to go down the ramp, whether they're able-bodied or handicapped. We're also going to have a thing that makes it so the wheels lock up on the carts if you try to steal a cart down that nice ramp and at all the other entrances.
Great.
We saw in the paper that the city was thinking about finding places that had shopping carts that are able to be taken from their site, so we're going to get in front of it and put that in.
Okay. Do you have photos of this corner somewhere?
I think we do. They were in the last submittal, if you have that. Yeah, get them out of the trash. Oh yeah, that is what, my presentation isn't over yet, but if you can get the last package had photos that we were looking at, that had some photos of it. This is the cart corral that Sprouts wants to use, and they would chop off, you could make them chop off this upper part. But I wanted to, before I end my presentation, I wanted to get a feeling of your pulse for that design out in the parking lot.
So they expressed, we told them that it would probably not be acceptable to have their name on the higher part, so they are agreeable to simple.
Sorry, can we have you flip that on?
Push the button there.
Thank you.
We spoke with Sprouts and informed them that would probably not be acceptable to have their name on the taller part. And so they're willing to take that off just to simplify the design. And we plan to place it right next to planters that exist in the parking lot.
Okay.
So when he finds that, what this does is this roof just goes and it hips and it turns around the corner.
While he's looking for that, why don't we go back to the parking lot?
Yeah. So these are the spots where there's one cart corral there, one cart corral there, one cart corral there.
Two. That's two.
That's two spaces for carts in a single cart corral. It just goes all the way down.
Okay, and this is currently, there's tree.
Tree. So the tenant wants to use that design. Right. That's the corner right there. See if there's a better photo here. Like another one here. It shows how that is right now. So what we'd be doing is putting a gable end on there so that the signage isn't just in that thin sign band, but it can be pushed up a little bit with a little more space. I would just be California framing that over the existing roof.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Maybe. What do you guys think of that cart corral?
We'll get to that.
Okay, so you're not going to say.
Not yet.
Okay, then I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So, assuming you guys reject that, this is what the landlord would rather do than the tenant, is something like that, which is a little bit more elaborate. So we laid it out what the typical layout would be for the double one, with the ironwork coming in like this, and you know, just a curb at the bottom so that the carts aren't scraping against the steel and rubbing off the paint, and then, you know.
Okay.
So I guess that's the end
That's
of my
it.
presentation.
All right.
Color to match the building, metal color.
Okay. So we will move on and open public comment. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and move on to questions. Mr. Watkins, do you have any questions?
I'm not following the roof extension on that east elevation. Whichever you mind just walking through the plans working?
I think
That is in the same plane as that.
that part I get, but it's this point right here. It pokes past this hip line. That little corner pulls past it, and I don't see it reflecting on.
The hip line is for the front
This
of,
sticks front of that, in front of that gutter.
Well, wouldn't this elevation be shown on this side though? Right, this face is that right?
It's right down here.
So
That's
way.
all one plane. We just hatched it to show the area that's in the modifications.
The graphic part I get too,
Okay.
but it's that. All right, do you follow that tile line right there? This is the hip, right?
it's right here.
It's this one,
This guy.
is that one.
That's the one you're
Beyond.
seeing.
And this one is like.
I thought I was looking at the side of this guy.
The ridge is right there.
So that ridge runs back, and that's only this piece.
Yeah, and it planes into the existing roof slopes right
Okay.
there.
That was on that trend. So
Yeah.
sorry, that wasn't
Yeah.
following the top part.
We
So
should've
that's my
made
only
it,
question.
Like,
Or-
way lighter.
One question more. The difference between the two proposals on the carts, corrals, is there, and one's obviously a lot nicer than the other one, and it's not a bad thing that ownership is liking that, but is there a reason why they support that one more than the other one? If it seems like that might seem like it's maybe a little bit more expensive to do, but
Because the tenant would pay for this one and the landlord would pay for that one.
gotcha.
And the question was what again?
The different, I was
Why
surprised, because
they
usually it
like
would be
that
the
one?
inverse, like the nicer one is what they're supporting, so I was just kind of curious what the.
The first one is what all grocery stores use.
Totally.
I use it in other shopping centers, and it works fine.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it would not have a banner at the top. You don't
Sure.
need to tell people to return carts there.
Yeah, they know.
And so it's nice and simple, and I think that would be acceptable.
Gotcha.
But we're at the point now where I have to deliver the space, and I can't afford to come back here anymore. I need to try to get things approved.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make sure. I was down in Irvine and saw that during Christmas and took a photo,
Yeah.
thinking that it, in worst case, we
You
could
have
get,
a backup.
we could get that approved.
Okay.
Right.
Only
Yeah.
question.
And I offered to pay for that.
Okay.
For Sprouts, if we have to go to
Get
that
it.
design.
Okay.
So it's up to you guys.
Thank you. Only question. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Richard?
The new cart area is not taking up any old landscape, correct?
No, it's taking up parking spaces,
Great.
so that's what our modification will be, to ask for four less parking spaces there. But knowing that the shopping center has historically been underparked, we did move 11 parking spaces from behind the shopping center to the front parking field, so we feel like it's reasonable.
And when we went to the planning department to get the parking lot redesign complete, they did write in their report that they know we were going to be coming back and asking to put these cart corrals in as part of this setback requirement. And they thought it was reasonable, but they would deal with it at that point.
So we're hoping that we can get through that process and get this all constructed by when the store opens in August.
Questions? No?
Nope.
Questions?
I think I may have just answered my own question here, Paul. How tall is this beast? It's on the back here.
It'd be
2,000.
36.13 inches
I like that it's called a piece.
to the top of the post.
To the top of the sign.
The sign part we're eliminating.
Oh, so,
There's no
okay,
sign.
no sign, so just the rail.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, comments?
Just this over here? Oh, because we reviewed it. Yeah.
We're going to go through everybody, but
I like. I think the proposed, gable design at Jack's is nice, and all those little things make sense, and they're nicely done. They're integrated with what you already have. I don't see any big issue about it. The modification I personally support because, like you pointed out, you started the project, you brought 11 forward. You're taking down 4. You're still a net gain of 7 more than what was there before, even if it's underparked. So I think that's a benefit. And like Vice Chair Six pointed out, the landscaping, you're not losing any of that. You're maintaining the integrity of what was already there. Pretty straightforward. And I hate to do that, but I really do like the photos you found of the one in Irvine. It's a nicer look, but I like it. I think it's, yeah, it's like night and day. So,
I'm not surprised.
yeah, I think it's going to add to what you already have going on with everything. I think it's going to match that. The other ones are going to look like a mismatch, unfortunately. So I think it is more consistent.
I have no other comments.
I have got nothing to add down here.
Well, this is very tempting, but what it does show is the possibility for increasing the landscaping rather than, well, for the one through that you have. Because you can see this looks like it's sorry. It's almost unfortunate you showed this because it's so beautiful as to be hypnotic. But it does occur to me that you could add more landscaping if you go this route. That being said, I could be perfectly fine with this rail system. As far as the architecture go, I think it's a very neat solution. The way you've turned the corner there, amplified the building, gave it more presence, nice touches all the way around.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree. Well, I prefer the nicer, all things considered, of course.
The cart corral.
Yep.
Art Corral.
All right. Well, so this is concept review, and this would be going to staff hearing officer?
Mr. Chair, yes, this would be going to, if the board feels that this is ready as designed, it can go to the staff hearing officer, and we'd be looking for comments that any required modifications have been mitigated by the design.
Okay. So I will make a motion that the board appreciates the design and documentation of the project, and we feel that the project, that we can support the proposed modifications. So this would be continued to the staff hearing officer. And the board can support the modification because the parking is being offset to the greatest extent possible, and that it's a benefit to having the shopping cart corrals in the center, and that the design of the, what is this, the south corner?
Southwest corner.
The proposed.
Southeast, sorry.
The proposed remodel of the southeast corner is commendable, and although it occurs within the setback, the quality of the design, it mitigates any setback issues. The board prefers the custom cart railing design. And it should match other metal on the
color PC6
on the project. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay.
With a question, can this go back to, we can't PDA nor final before a show, correct?
Vice Chair Six, that's correct.
So can we have it come back on consent?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
So
board feels that it can be on consent.
let's, how many board members feel this could come back for preliminary approval on the consent calendar? Okay, it's 5-0. So note to staff that the project can be agendized on consent for PDA, possibly final.
To return on consent, okay.
All right, anything else to add? Okay.
Thank you.
We have a second, first and second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
So do we need to bring it back, or does it come back?
No, we have to have the other hearing first, and then we got to come back here. So we have to have the
Okay,
modification hearing.
and that,
Just consent
Yeah. Awesome.
for final? Is that what
Yeah.
come back?
Project design approval. We'll talk
Okay.
about it after if you have questions. We have to close the
so
meeting.
that concludes our agenda for the evening. Thank you very much. We'll close our agenda.
Thank you.